right. Good morning. This is our workshop about studying in Northern Ireland as part of International University Month. And I am so happy to introduce our speakers this morning, Peter Brimstone from Queen's University Belfast and Jonny Hill from Ulster University, also in Belfast. And Northern Ireland is a really, really cool little place that I think not a lot of our students know about. So I'm excited to learn more. And I was supposed to come visit you guys last summer, but COVID had other plans. Yep, unfortunately. So hopefully next summer that will happen. But I'm excited to learn more, and I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
Thank you very much. Well, at least you know where the first stop on your post-COVID tour will be. It'll be straight to Northern Ireland.
That's right.
Which would be great. I will pull up my presentation and then we'll get going. So, studying in Northern Ireland, as Miss Adler said, I'm Peter and that's Jonny, and we are the Northern Ireland double act. The lovely thing about Northern Ireland, as we will get on to, is it's super easy to try and pick a university because there is literally two of us. So we're all here. So you can hear from every single university in Northern Ireland today, which is delightful news. Where is Northern Ireland? So obviously we are part of the United Kingdom. We are one of the four nations. So you have England, Scotland and Wales over on that main chunk on the right-hand side. And then you have us. We are quite unique within the UK, very unique in that we're obviously a separate island and we're technically part of the island of Ireland. And what that means is on the island, you get a lovely little blend where you have the UK gold standard education that you're very familiar with, but also that world famous Irish heritage and culture and the welcome of the Irish people. We're quite a small country, about 1.8 million people, which makes us equivalent to some of the smaller northeastern states in the US, the likes of Rhode Island and Connecticut and half of Delaware, little places like that. Yeah, small, but no less charming anyway. The capital is Belfast. It is where my university, Queen's University Belfast, is located. It's where one of Jonny's campuses is located. So he's lucky in that he's spread out over most of the country. But Belfast is the capital city. And we'll come on to a little bit more about Belfast in a while. For a little place, we have quite a lot of history with the United States. No less than 20 US presidents hail from this part of the world, which is something I only learned yesterday when I was doing this research. Some are a lot closer linked, the likes of Andrew Jackson and Ulysses Grant. Their parents were born in Northern Ireland, and it's a little more abstract for some of the others, grandparents-wise. But Teddy Roosevelt and all the way through to the Bushes hail from our little part of Ireland. The current president does not, and read into that what you will. Some key revolutionary figures also. So from the very inception of the United States of America, Northern Ireland has had quite an influence. 3 signatories in the Declaration of Independence. And if you have seen Hamilton and are as well versed in that as I am, Hercules Mulligan, the spy on the inside, was born in Coleraine, which is where one of Jonny's campuses is. So we were right in the thick of that as well. There are over 200 US companies headquartered in Northern Ireland. It's a huge destination for foreign direct investment from the US. And you will see, and as we get through some of our later slides, you'll see some major US brand names that have chosen to come and invest in Northern Ireland. And a large reason for that is because of the excellent access to talented graduates within Northern Ireland. So both Ulster and Queen's have very close relationships with these businesses. It being a small place, the access is very easy, and they know they can get talented graduates direct from universities here. The US is Northern Ireland's second largest export market, surprisingly behind Southern Ireland, which is where we send most of our stuff, but the US comes in just behind them. We send some things you may be familiar with, the likes of our whiskey, but other surprising things are airplane seats. We actually make 60% of the world's airplane seats in Northern Ireland. I have no idea why, but we do, and we send them all over the world. So there's just some little interesting facts. In terms of getting to Northern Ireland, it's very easy. We have 2 airports in Belfast itself that serve international destinations all over the world. And there is also a major international airport in Dublin, which you can fly directly to from pretty much everywhere in the US, LA and San Francisco included. So very easy to get here and then very easy to get around, wonderfully well connected into Europe and everywhere else. It is an outdoor country. It is a beautiful one. This, Miss Adler, sadly would have been on your list of things that we were doing the week you were meant to come in June, would be teetering across Carrick-a-Reid rope bridge, which you can see in the picture there. It is a country where the scenery is spectacular. We're a land of myth and legends and giants and all that kind of thing. And the scenery very much reflects that. So if you're the type of student who likes being outdoors and likes getting out in the wild and beyond, then Northern Ireland is very much for you. We are also world renowned for our food and drink. And it is fantastic. Sadly, you can't experience it remotely. So describing food is an art I won't get into. But again, something, when you come here, we have Michelin-starred restaurants. We have fantastic distilleries. We have the oldest whiskey distillery in the world in Bushmills. So that's something we're pretty good at as well. You may actually be more familiar with Northern Ireland than you know, because pretty much all of Game of Thrones was filmed in Northern Ireland. So if you've ever watched Game of Thrones and you've seen them riding about on hilltops and through the woods and all the rest, that was Northern Ireland. So you've probably seen a good bit of it on TV already. Capital city of Northern Ireland is Belfast. It is a relatively small capital city, around 300,000 people. It is the UK's most affordable student city. So particularly when you're thinking about costs, and if you're thinking of cost in mind when looking at the UK, living cost is a huge part of it. So tuition fees obviously is one part, but then the amount you spend on accommodation, on food, on entertainment is a significant other part of it. It is 60% cheaper to come to somewhere like Belfast than it is to go to London. So that is a significant difference in the terms of price, but also in terms of quality of life that you can afford. You know, if you come to Belfast for the likes of maybe $600-700, you could have a nice apartment overlooking the river to yourself if you wanted, and compare that to London, you might get a broom closet if you're really lucky for that price. So it is worth thinking about. We are also the UK's safest city. It is a small city. It's the type of city you can walk around at any time of day or night. The people are very friendly. That is representative in the demographics of the city as well. 46% of the population are under 30. So it is very much a young people's city. It is a city that is for both students and young professionals. As I mentioned, a lot of those US companies who are headquartered here are in the likes of finance and tech, and it is very much young professionals driving the life of the city. Which is represented in things like music venues and cinemas and art galleries and all the things that young people enjoy. So a fantastic city to be a young person. The city is traditionally split into quarters, and these reflect the history of the city and things you might be familiar with. The Titanic Quarter is probably the most well known of that. The Titanic was built in Belfast, which is a strange, proud achievement to have a boat that didn't finish one journey, but it was absolutely fine when it left here. But the Titanic and shipbuilding is a huge part of the city's culture. So one quarter of Belfast is the Titanic Quarter, and that is now still home to things like our shipyards, where a lot of the industry sits, but also the Titanic film studios, where a lot of the filming for things like Game of Thrones, some of this recent Star Wars, stuff like that, has taken place in Belfast. So from an artistic point of view, fantastic options there for students. There's also the Linen Quarter, and this is very much the cultural quarter of the city. This is where a lot of the shopping or open air markets, theatres, cinemas, independent music venues, small arts festivals will take place year round. And like I said, our restaurants as well. The food in Belfast is fantastic. We tend to export chefs at a young age and then re-import them with everything they've learned from around the world. And what has led to is this fantastic cuisine in Belfast. You could genuinely eat out every day of the week, all year round, and get something different. The Cathedral Quarter, as it is named, is the home of the city's cathedral. It's also home to Ulster University's Belfast campus, but this is where a lot of the bars and restaurants are. So it is very much open air when weather permits, standing out and enjoying yourself. And it is a lively social scene in the city, and we are a very social people. If you've ever met any Irish people or heard anything about us, we do like to talk a lot. So that is what you'll spend a lot of time in Belfast doing. And the final quarter of the city is the Queen's Quarter, which is where my own university is. And this is very much kind of your bohemian student quarter of the city in South Belfast, where again, it's a lot of cafes, bookshops, independent shops, and the university district, and most of our 25,000 students would live in this quarter. So that's just to give you a little bit of flavour of Belfast and Northern Ireland as a place. Belfast, of course, is just one of the cities in Northern Ireland. Other cities like Derry and Coleraine, where some of Ulster's campuses are, similarly thriving, wonderful little places to live. But with that, I'm going to pass on to Jonny to start talking a little bit about our universities.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Peter. So yeah, as Peter said, there's Queen's and there's Ulster. So Northern Ireland is a relatively small area of the world, and therefore we have two institutions that service the whole of Northern Ireland, the whole country. They're two very large universities in terms of UK populations. So we have similar numbers of students on campus, 25,000 students approximately on each campus, which, well, at each institution, which compared to some of the US institutions is really not that big in terms of UK sizes. It's pretty large. There's some universities in the UK that have as little as 130 students. Some have 40,000. So we're about middle ground, really. So we're going to go into further detail each of our institutions. But what I wanted to just cover about was more about the education system and how it differs to the US. So I should be able to skip the page now. Oh, there we go. So things that you need to consider, and why you should maybe consider UK education is the structure and the way that it's delivered. And just a few key notes that we've put on here is the duration. So 3 years for a degree, typically in the UK. It's 4 in Scotland, but the rest of the UK countries it's 3. And in comparative to the US as well, being 4 years. Reason being, it is very focused. You're going to get a very thorough and deep understanding of a very specific subject. So if you want to become an engineer, you're going to study engineering from day one. If you want to be a lawyer, you want to be a pharmacist, and you're going to go straight in from high school, straight into year one of that major, essentially. So it's rare to change majors. It is possible to do, but we strongly recommend that you explore those programs before you even apply, really. So think about the kind of career you want to go into. What kind of career are you interested in working in? What degree will lead into that? So I mentioned before about engineering. So do you want to be civil engineer, mechanical, fire safety, or are you interested in doing business and becoming a CEO of a business and you want to maybe specialize in finance or something like that? So yeah, really want to think about those majors. And as I say, it is from day one. It's something you need to think about way in advance. And if you look on all the universities, on both universities' websites, we talk about all our courses that are available, and the modules that make up a degree will be listed on those course pages as well. I'm just going to flick through to the next page here. So what to expect? So as I mentioned, you pick your major from day one. So that is, I say from day one, is from when you're applying. It's not from when you enroll on campus. So something to think about, something to speak about with Daphne, with ourselves. Have a read through the website. Make sure you understand that it's not something that you're going to enroll and then just change in your first or second year. The way that we teach is essentially you build year on year of that information that you have learned. And there's a strong emphasis on independent learning. So you'll have all different types of classes. You'll have lectures, seminars, laboratories, workshops. You'll have some time with a professor, and then you're going to go and do some independent research and learning and projects in addition to that. So in theory, for a 2-hour lecture, you should definitely go and do at least 2 hours of independent work and projects on top of that as well as a baseline. So yeah, there's a real emphasis on that independent learning. We provide you, we facilitate you with this information, and you've got a question. Why are we telling you that? What's the purpose? Let me go and do some research behind that. So I mentioned about having all the modules listed on the website. We have to be super transparent about everything that we offer, that we teach, and then also with our entry criteria as well. So we have to be clear and concise about what it is that we're accepting for entry onto our courses. And therefore we are unable to just change those through the year. So if you're applying to that course, that is what the entry criteria is. That's what you need to aim for and graduate with. The two institutions are very cost effective. It is the most affordable place to study in the UK here in Northern Ireland. And then also your cost of living, Peter did mention it before, in comparison to London, Manchester, Edinburgh, Northern Ireland, and Belfast being the capital city is one of the most affordable places to be. So, just going to go back one, sorry. So yeah, just going back onto that degree structure. So typically you'll study 3 modules per semester. A module is worth 20 credits, which is roughly around 5 US credits if you understand the US university education system. It's often that you can do a year's placement. You can do study abroad years, but generally at Ulster, we recommend you do a year's work placement where you go and work within the industry. You're gaining that key experience, often paid, and then you come back and you finish your final year. You may sometimes hear it being referred to as a sandwich course, just as a slightly different term. So the application process. So all UK universities are part of what's called UCAS. If you're aware of the Common App, then you would have a slight understanding of UCAS, because the Common App was loosely based on what UCAS offers in its process. So it has a strict deadline of January the 5th. You can apply to up to 5 institutions, or you can apply to 5 courses at one institution. It's up to you. It's making sure that you're picking the right option for yourself. You need to provide a personal statement saying why you want to study a particular course and the career you want to go into. But just bear in mind, if you're applying to a couple of universities, you don't want to put in your personal statement you're interested in studying at X university, because it's going to go to Y and Z university as well, if that makes sense. So just something to bear in mind there. Tests are not required in advance of applying. Submit your applications before you've graduated from high school, before you've taken all your tests. Get those applications in. And as I say, January the 15th is the deadline. Now, there is options after that, but universities aren't always able to accept applications. Places can be filled in courses. So you could have a really competitive course where, for example, our physiotherapy course only has 5 places. So application placements fill up very quickly when the applications come in through UCAS. So I'm just going to skip to the next page. I think Peter's going to pick up on this next page. If you're listening, Peter. If not, I can carry on. So yeah, just about...
Sorry, Jonny, I am here. I just couldn't find the unmute button. You would think after months and months of Zoom, I would be better at this, but I have found it. But I appreciate that. Yes, anyone obviously who is thinking about applying and around the UCAS stuff, I can clearly highly recommend the UCAS session that was run as part of International Universities Month a little bit earlier, which I may or may not have been involved in presenting. But if you need more details around applying, I'm sure Ms. Adler would be happy to share those videos with you around the application process. Trying to think of Northern Ireland itself and why you would choose Northern Ireland as a study destination throughout the UK, because we know you have loads of fantastic options in the UK and in other countries, but Northern Ireland genuinely offers something unique that other parts of the country doesn't. Part of this is due to the rich political history. If you have any interest in kind of politics and geography and any of that, you will know Northern Ireland's place within that, and that makes it a fascinating place to study. Things like civil rights law, international relations, criminal justice reform. Northern Ireland has a fantastically rich history in this, and is somewhere you can really go and learn from not just the professors who have been there and lived through it and worked through it all, but from the people as well. It is very much a live environment that serves as a microcosm really for everything that's going on elsewhere in the world. So if you think of some of the civil rights issues that are going on in the US at the moment, or some of the political issues, and you look at political reform, policing reform, all of these topics that are really key debates in the US at the moment, Northern Ireland is a fantastic example of where a lot of those changes have been enacted already, and where we have been on that journey and a lot further down the road on that journey. And some of the lessons and perspectives you can take from studying outside of your home environment are really irreplaceable. I had a conversation with the US Consul General for Northern Ireland a couple of weeks ago about US students and why they choose to come to Northern Ireland, because we have, I think, between Ulster and Queens, we have probably about 500 or 600 US students here already. And her take on it was that Northern Irish people are uniquely placed to understand the US student experience. And for US students going abroad, that is going away to another place, and there's an assumption that people know who you are because of the country you come from already. And they know because they have seen whether it's what your politicians put on Twitter or your news media puts out, there is an assumption of what someone from the US thinks or someone from the US believes, and that clearly isn't true. And Northern Irish people, in the Consul General's opinion, are uniquely placed to understand that, because we are a place of which people think they know. They think they know the experience of the people here. So US students find that really refreshing to come to Northern Ireland and to be taken individually on their own face value by the people here. So that's from someone from the US who's spent a good deal of time here. Again, we are the safest region in the UK. It is a fantastic place to come and live, not just to come and study. Jonny would testify to that, being a blow-in from England. So he's come over and clearly enjoyed himself and has stayed. Again, we are a thriving, forward-looking population and economy. Clearly, there are current economic challenges with COVID, but we are in probably the best position in the UK to bounce back from all of that. As I wait for the slide to change, other reasons to come to Northern Ireland: huge, as I mentioned, huge potential within the economy here. And if you're thinking about university studies in the context of postgraduate employment, Northern Ireland is a fantastic place for that. We are Europe's leading destination for fintech investment, which is finance and technology. So the fastest growing digital city in the UK and 7th fastest in the world. So in terms of the technology and the speed of the industry and the speed of change in Northern Ireland, there are genuinely few better places in the world to come and study and work in those areas. We are home to major US firms, as I mentioned, the likes of Citigroup, Liberty, Allstate, you name it, they probably have a presence here. And some of the smaller industries that you might not know about, but are ever present, the likes of artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. And indeed, the UK government's cybersecurity hub is based in Belfast as well. Film and TV, I've already mentioned, fantastic creative sector. We've always been known for the likes of our music and our literature. You know, Seamus Heaney and C.S. Lewis and Oscar Wilde and all these people who have been born or educated in Northern Ireland. And in modern terms, a lot of that is around film and cinema. And other areas, engineering, pharmaceuticals, we are leading the way in the UK's recovery and treatment of COVID-19 through companies like Randox, who are delivering all UK testing, and Almac. And of course, with Brexit coming around the corner, Northern Ireland will be in a wonderful little position of being the only bit of the UK that actually shares a border with the European Union through our very close neighbours in the south of Ireland. So fascinating place from a trade and politics perspective as well. With that, I'm going to pass the baton back to Jonny. Hopefully you can find your mute button quicker than I could, and you can talk about Ulster.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Peter. Yeah, I mean, one of the first things I just want to pick up on what Peter was saying is that I'm not from Northern Ireland. I'm originally from England, and I moved over 3 years ago now. And I can confirm from first-hand experience that it is one of the most affordable places to be in the UK. I've noticed a significant difference living here than what I have in England. And also the friendliness, the community vibe that you get here in Northern Ireland. People love to get involved, love to talk to each other, very communal feel here. So yeah, it's something that we often go around and say it, but I can genuinely confirm for myself that it is 100% true. Okay, so yeah, so I'm Jonny, and I am from Ulster. I'm from Ulster University. I'm from England, but I work at Ulster University. So Ulster is one of the largest campuses and universities on the island of Ireland. So we have 4 campuses around Northern Ireland. So the Belfast campus at the minute holds about 800 students, but once it's finished next year, we'll hold around 14,000 students. So it's significantly growing in the next few months. We also have Jordanstown, which is about 8 miles out of Belfast city centre, Coleraine, which Peter mentioned earlier, which is up in the north of Northern Ireland, and then Magee campus, which is in the city of Derry / Londonderry, which is in the northwest of Northern Ireland. So we have 4 very different campuses, 2 that are city-based, 1 that's suburban, and 1 that's completely rural, in the countryside, self-contained, but in one of the most beautiful areas of Northern Ireland. And one of the pictures that Peter shared about the Game of Thrones is just around the corner from there. So you've possibly seen some of the areas of where the Coleraine campus is based if you have watched Game of Thrones. So yeah, I mentioned we have around 14,000 students will be on the Belfast campus. Between the other campuses, predominantly Coleraine and Magee, that would make up the rest of the student population, being around 25,000 students. We have around 1,000 international students. So although we only have a small number of international students as it stands, we have a full international student service that is there to support international students, from inquiries through myself to support you with your application process, right through to enrolling students and providing support all the way through your studies and further on to graduation. One of the biggest differences that you'll notice with Queen's and Ulster is our accommodation and how it compares to US institutions. We offer single occupant bedrooms, so you get your own bedroom, and often you'll have an ensuite option in there. So it's like a mini hotel room. And then you'll have a kitchen, lounge, communal area for you and up to around seven other students. So that's your own private place. I mentioned before about the independent learning, the big emphasis on that independence. Well, there's also that in the student experience and the student life, and we do focus on that independence. So you wouldn't typically have like a room and board that you may have heard of with the US. You would typically have paid for your accommodation, and within there is a kitchen facility so you can make your own meals. But there's also cafes, restaurants, and shops, takeaways all around the cities and the campuses. But you know, don't be afraid that you're going to be making your own meals. You will learn to cook more than ramen noodles and pasta. You know, it's you're there for a few years, so you will certainly learn to make a few other meals. In our Belfast accommodation, there's actually a chef that comes in and teaches once a week of how to make different meals, and he is from one of the restaurants in the Cathedral Quarter, which Peter was speaking about earlier. So just a few other things to think about when you're choosing a university is thinking about those services that are offered. So the counselling, you're going to go through waves of emotions. It's exciting and there's going to be all sorts of different things going on. But if there's help that is needed, there'll always be that service there, whether it be counselling, immigration, visas, health, money advice service. We're there to support you because we want you to have a successful time. So I hope you can see that the writing's a little bit small, but we have 4 faculties in our institution, and within those faculties, they're broken down by business, life and health science, computing and engineering, built environment, and then arts, humanities, social sciences. We get a real mix of course choices from the US. Most of our students go into the arts and humanities, especially into areas like animation, fine arts, dance, drama, performance. But then we also get a lot of students going into sports, pharmacy, optometry, and then also our social science as well, especially postgrad social sciences. But one of the things that I would strongly encourage you to do is when you're looking at particular courses and you want to, if you are interested in looking at league table rankings, do take a look at the individual courses and see where that particular course is ranked across the UK. I'm not going to spend huge amounts of time on that, but it's just something to bear in mind that, you know, you may get some universities that are ranked really high overall, but then that particular course may be lower, and vice versa. So yeah, just something to really bear in mind if you're interested in exploring education through a league table structure. So I mentioned about the rankings, but one of the big things that I really want to emphasize is the 94% of our graduates are in work or further study 6 months or after graduation. The reason I want to emphasize that is because our degrees are really focused upon employability. So we're not just teaching a degree to churn through students. You're going to focus on the employability side. You have the option of doing a year's work placement. You can do coursework that's aligned to a particular industry's requirements. For example, our fire safety engineering school, they were tasked with a project from Marks and Spencer's. I'm not sure if you know the shopping line, but they asked us to test how close we can keep clothes together. And if a fire started, will the fire spread? And the students got to actually work on this project, setting fire to some expensive clothes to check how far apart the clothes need to be within a department store. And that's kind of the projects that students get involved in. And it's not just created for the sake of it, it's real world learning. So just a quick one, and just to think about, we mentioned before about the affordability. So to study in the UK, it's financially very affordable, and mums and dads will always love to hear that. But overall, with our fees and our scholarships applied, you're looking at just below $17,000 US. We are able to administer federal aid, whether it be FAFSA, Sally Mae, 529s, and we're also a GI Bill approved university. So we often get veterans come and study in Ulster as well. Now, I think there's a slide that I've not put in here. Yeah, I've not put it in there, but there's one that I wanted to mention as well, which is about the student experience. And it's really important. You're coming all the way over to Northern Ireland. You're going to be studying and working hard, but you've got to have a social life as well. So it may be that you want to get a part-time job, you're allowed to do that, but you need to find a balance of studying, working, and having a social life. Go and enjoy yourself. There's a lot to see in Northern Ireland, as Peter's mentioned before in the presentation. You can go to Dublin, you go to London, you can go to France, obviously when things calm down a little bit more. But then also during your university experience, there's going to be clubs and societies that you can join. If you want to play any sports, if you want to play for the university sports teams, or even just socially, you know, just completely amateur to engage with other friends who have interest in that. If you have an interest in, say, politics, we have a Harry Potter society. Not sure what they do, but basically it's all about engaging you with other students that have a similar interest. And it's just about getting you settled in to meet multiple students. So yeah, that student experience is really important. It's something to bear in mind. So I'm going to hand over to Peter now. But what we can do after Peter's finished, we can answer any questions that you may have. So I'm going to hand over to Peter now. Cheers.
Thanks very much, Jonny. I will start talking about Queen's as soon as the slides catch up with me. There we are. So Queen's University Belfast. So we're over on the other side of the city from Ulster's Belfast campus. We have been around for quite a while. We were founded in 1845, which makes us the 9th oldest university in the UK, as is reflected in the lovely Victorian architecture of our main campus there in the picture. We are part of the UK's Russell Group, which has been compared to the Ivy League in the US, but essentially is a group of 24 research-intensive universities in the UK, and that essentially speaks to the research that Jonny was mentioning at Ulster that drives a lot of our teaching. So that, in reality, what that looks like for a student is it's the knowledge that your professors are actively creating new knowledge in the areas that they're teaching. They're not just reteaching old stuff. They are, you know, academics who are working with real industries, real businesses to go out and find out what is happening in the world and to add to that knowledge. And that is reflected in what you will learn in the classroom. It is at the very forefront of what is going on in the world. We have 25,000 students, as mentioned earlier. About 3,000 of those are international from over 100 different countries. So big international multicultural campus. We have 15 subject areas which are in the top 200 in the world. So exceptionally highly ranked programs. Some of the particularly strong programs that US students choose to come and study are things like international relations and politics, but also things like marine biology and animal welfare and some of the more niche programs within the sciences. We offer guaranteed housing to every international student who comes to Queen's, and I'll show you a little bit more about our housing in a second. Total cost of attendance for us is a little bit higher. You're looking at anywhere between $28,000 and $35,000 per year, but that's everything included. So that's your tuition, your housing, your social life, your travel, all of that roughly in for that total cost of attendance per year. And again, it is only a 3-year program. A few quick facts about Queen's. Our Chancellor is quite well known in the US. It is Secretary Hillary Clinton. The Clintons have a long relationship with Northern Ireland and with Queen's in particular, and we're delighted that Secretary Clinton is on board as the university's Chancellor. We've churned out quite a few notable people in our time, a few Nobel Prize winners, and Seamus Heaney for literature and Lord Trimble for peace, as well as quite a few presidents of Ireland and first ministers of Northern Ireland through the years. We tend to be quite politically influential. As part of that, a little interesting fact, I do like an interesting fact, Queen's once held a UK parliamentary seat up until 1950. So we had our own members of parliament. So that's sort of the equivalent to the US House, the US Senate. Queen's actually had its own district for a long time. And although we have been around for a very long time, we have been forward thinking through all of this. We actually had female deans in post at Queen's before the University of Oxford ever let female students even attend the university. So we have been ahead of the curve for quite a while. Entry requirements at Queen's. This is something important to note. For 2021, we will be a little bit more flexible around this. If you have attended some of the UK study sessions over the past month, you'll have known we do tend to focus quite heavily on testing. And for us, that looks at things like the SAT and APs or SAT subject tests, in addition to the other standard bits in UCAS. But if you have any specific questions, you can absolutely ask me. But we will be flexible this year because we know things are all over the place. In terms of the accommodation, as Jonny said, it is actually a huge thing. It's a huge deal when you go away to university. And in our part of the world, we absolutely believe that you should have your own bedroom, which seems like an odd concept to have to talk about, but you won't have to share a room when you come here. And largely now you'll get ensuite or bathrooms with your room as well. They are fantastic ways to meet new students. It's often where you'll make some of your best friends for the rest of your life, is the people that you will live with. And they are little communities. We are lucky in Northern Ireland because we are a small country and we have small accessible cities. You know, you can live within walking distance of the campus, and you can live in what is very much a suburban kind of village feel, but still be within walking distance of the city centre and all the nightlife that comes with it. So it's really is the best of both worlds. We like to say it that way, but that is very much what our students reflect, in that they can have kind of the quiet life when they want it, but have everything that comes with living in major cities in Europe at the same time. I am going to leave it there. I'm going to stop. I won't talk any longer. And I will stop sharing so that we can go back to all of our lovely faces. In case anybody has any questions, do feel free to just unmute yourselves and shout whenever you want. And me and Jonny will be happy to answer anything you have for us.
Thank you both so much. That was really great. Can't wait to visit one of these days.
Yeah, hopefully not too long ago. But yeah, folks, do ask any questions that you may have. You want to ask more about courses, structure, social life, feel free.
Miss Adler, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to ask me a question, because there's got to be more that you want to know. You wanted to come and visit us, so that you clearly wanted to know more about Northern Ireland.
Oh man. Okay, pop quiz. Let me think about this.
See, this is, I'm just trying to put us all in the student shoes, because nobody likes being asked to ask a question. It's like, don't do it,
right?
Not me.
I'm trying to think of what was not said in this presentation that would, from other ones that might be useful. Let's see. Could you say a few more words about UCAS?
Absolutely.
Could you tell the students about a little bit about what's required on UCAS, because the concept is similar to Common App, but in practice is actually quite different in the way it looks.
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest thing to know about it is we are very transparent. Like, we will tell you exactly what you need to get in. If it's not clear from our websites and it's not clear from the brochures and stuff that you can see, reach out to people like me or Jonny, because it is literally our job just to tell people how to get here. So that first and foremost will be the academic entry requirements. So we will tell you need a certain GPA, certain score in an SAT, or certain APs, or a mixture of them all. Each university will look for different things. And the thing to know about not just Northern Ireland, the UK as a whole, but even within Northern Ireland, is there will be a full range. So don't feel like it's going to be above what you're aiming for. You know, there are always options with the various programs. So one side of it is those test scores. We do look at test scores, but then there are two other key pieces to the UCAS application. The first one is a personal statement, which is kind of, as it says on the tin, it is a statement that you write. It's 4,000 characters long, and it is about you and why you want to study the program you have chosen. And that is a key thing to get in mind. It is all about that program. It is about, you know, if you want to come to us to study marine biology, tell us why marine biology, and what you understand about the subject and what you hope to learn from the subject. Similarly, if you're doing any extracurriculars and things, tie them into your program. I'll continue on the marine biology line. You know, if you've been out and have been pottering along the coast and digging up seashells, and that has got you thinking about the marine environment, all that, fantastic, put that in. You know, if you play the piano, unless you do it on a boat or in the sea, don't really care, because it doesn't really, it doesn't have any relevance to the subject. So keep all that stuff relevant to your major. The final part is a letter of recommendation. Same thing, get it relevant to you as a student. We don't really mind who writes it. It doesn't have to be someone super impressive. You know, if your uncle's a US senator, hooray. If he doesn't know anything about marine biology, doesn't make a difference. So ask your guidance counselor, ask your biology teacher, get people who know you and know you as a student to write those things. So those are your main components. You got your test scores, your personal statement, and your letter of recommendation, and that's it. The same thing goes to all 5 of your choices. So you only have to do it once, and off it goes. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
In the chat, just a few links that you may find useful. So one of them is the date, and then the other one is what Peter was just mentioning, and about the about the personal statement. And there's just a few tips and tricks in there about things to think of when you're writing your personal statement. I strongly recommend, if you're writing it, don't submit it straight away. Get your mom and dad to look at it, get your sister, your brother, your friend. Sometimes people don't sell themselves as well as they might do. Maybe you undersell yourself. So get your friends to maybe have a look, because they might suggest you include something that you might not have considered doing before because you're being modest. So it's just something to think about. Also, in addition to those, depending on the course, there's other requirements. So if you're looking at a creative arts program, you would typically have to provide a portfolio of work. And it can really vary in the course. For us, we typically look for around 20 pieces of work that align to the course and what has sparked your interest in that. For example, I did digital media and marketing, so I provided a portfolio of all different kind of adverts and graphic design work that I had done a very long time ago. It was printed. Obviously now it's digital, so you can do that whether you do it through a website. A lot of students use things like Instagram. So it's about you using your creativity to meet that purpose. Some courses, there may be interviews as well, which would be typically done through Skype or something. We wouldn't expect you to fly over for an interview. That wouldn't be fair. But that is post-application. That is additional requirements that you would be contacted. But it's just things to bear in mind when you're considering your course of study.
Great. And then another useful thing would be, could you talk a little bit about conditional offers? Because that's very different than the US, and students are, American students are used to the system where like testing has to be done by December of senior year, and that's the last opportunity, whereas it's different in the UK. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
sure.
A conditional offer is it's almost a guaranteed offer as long as you meet those conditions. So here is your place. This is now what you need to do. Main reason being is the application deadline is January the 15th, and students are applying in their final year and won't be finishing until June. So you won't have those qualifications. So we wouldn't be able to say, yeah, absolutely, you're getting in based on not graduating from high school yet. So typically the conditions that are going to be in there is your high school diploma, your SATs, ACTs, whatever college entrance exams you're taking. It may be that your personal statement needs to be rewritten. Hopefully not, but it's just things on there. That would be your conditions. Once you have met all those, you've met the financial requirements as well, then that place is yours really. So, and again, with the interviews, an interview would be classed as a condition. So you would go conditional, and then when you accept it, you can go conditional firm, or you can make an insurance choice as well, have a backup institution as well. So you go conditional insurance.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Jonny's saying is don't get worried about the language around the conditional offer. If you meet those conditions, your place is guaranteed. It will happen a little bit later in the year, and you might be getting to kind of April, May time. If you're waiting on some test results, you're waiting on your diploma and thinking, oh no, is my place still there? Yes, it is. It will wait for you until you're ready. Just to give you context, students here in Northern Ireland, they don't sit their final exams. So kind of our equivalents of APs, things like that. They don't sit those until June, and they don't get the results until the middle of August. So that's when they all get their places at college, literally 3 weeks before the semester starts. So we're a lot later on that timeline, which I know is a terrifying thought. And thinking retrospectively to myself as a 17-year-old is insane. But that is the system here. So don't worry about it. If you're still getting your diploma in June, if you're getting test results back April, May time, you're still way ahead of all of the students who are here in the UK already. So yeah, you don't need to have done the test before you apply. So you can apply just on the basis of what you might take later in the year. So if you're looking at testing dates later on, you're looking at a diploma coming in later on, you can still apply and we'll give you an offer based on what we think you're going to get.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so that's super different because, you know, when students are applying in the US, it's kind of like, besides, you know, keeping up senior grades, it's kind of a done deal. Whatever you've done up to that point is it. And I think that's really a refreshing option because students can continue to test and you know, they have more time to meet those qualifications, which is great. So
it doesn't leave any room for senioritis, though. You do have to keep going all the way to the end, as comfortable as the thought of giving up in January feels.
Well, you know, we encourage them to not do that anyways, because even the US universities don't like that. So
yeah.
Any other questions, students?
What's your like general class size and like the student to staff like ratio thing?
Good question. For us, student to staff ratio is 15:1, I think. And that, to be honest, is very reflective of class sizes. It will vary by major. What you will find is the more creative and practical programs will have much smaller classes. So anything that involves lab work, or if you're in design studios, things like that, they're much smaller. If you do something like a business program, clearly there's a lot of information that ties into a lot of different programs. So you might find business students and politics students and economics students are all in one lecture together. So you might get a lecture with 100, 150 students in it. But generally speaking, we try to keep them below 30 or so if we can.
That's great. And I'll add to that as well. Here, it's really different. Like, you know, these are not small universities, right? So just like here, like the UCs and CSUs and other large universities, there are big lecture classes, but it's really, really different in the UK. Like 100 or 150 students in a lecture hall, not that big of a deal. And here you're going to get hundreds upon hundreds of students, and it seems to get bigger and bigger with UCs every year. So even though the universities are sometimes roughly the same size, just the way that it's structured in the UK is quite different. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're never going to have lectures of 5 or 9 or 1,200 students over there.
We don't have the space. We're a tiny little island. We only have small rooms, so we can't fit 1,200 students in the one room. But no, it's not the teaching style here. And even where we do have those larger lectures, and for us a large lecture is 100 students. Like that is a big lecture for us. That would be followed the same week by a seminar or a tutorial group in the same subject with the same professor, and that would be 6 or 8 students in a room with the professor and talking it out. So even you might have to stand and listen to the 1 hour PowerPoint, which, you know, has to be done for some subjects, but then you will either immediately after the lecture or maybe the next day, you will go into these little breakout groups with the same professor and sit and then thrash it out and talk through the subject area and kind of pull it apart, which I loved. That was my favorite part of going to university here, was the opportunity to then sit with a professor and debate. I mean, like, debate is a fancy word for argue, but you know, and sit and go through it with them. So there's always that balance. So even if you do find yourself in a large lecture, you'll always get the opportunity to break it down shortly after.
We're exactly the structure. It's yeah, what Peter was saying is exactly the same for us, except we're a ratio of 1 to 16, so it's just ever so slightly bigger. Our biggest lecture there is 200 students, but that's typically when you've got a business course. 2 different business courses have the same module, and we'll put those students together in one class. In theory, that's what it used to be. It's probably going to be less than that now. But yeah, I think the really important point there that Peter was making is that the whole point of us having these smaller class sizes is for you to engage with the professor, ask them questions. Just because they're telling you something doesn't mean you should just accept that and write it down. They want you to actually question that and say, why are you telling me this? What's the purpose of this? And actually engage in conversation and debate, as Peter put it. They thrive off that kind of opportunity to help you understand that, and then, you know, you question their narrative on that. So yeah, having those small group numbers really is key in making sure they can deliver that education in that particular way.
So cool. So just to draw a contrast, because I didn't know this, that I just learned something new. These small sections are with the professor.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, students, is a huge difference. I mean, I can't 100% guarantee this necessarily, but I have never heard ever in the US of schools with large lecture classes where it's the professor teaching the discussion section or lab section. The standard practice is that the professor teaches the lecture part, and then your smaller section is taught by a teacher assistant who's usually a graduate student. So that's not, you know, terrible or anything, but it's not the professor. That is huge. Wow.
There is times where there will be some form of teaching assistant for us, mostly when it's things like, say, for example, pharmacy in a laboratory.
Yeah, lab work.
That subject. But you're going to have a couple of PhD research students supporting each individual to make sure that there is that extra element of support, but they're not the key focus of that session. It is the professor that is leading on that, but it's adding that extra element of support in there too.
That's amazing.
And that is something that's absolutely key when you're looking at universities here, is that if you go on a program page and you see a particular professor's name attached to that program, and you look at the research and you think this is someone who's really interesting, you know, it's someone I'd really love to work with, they are the person who is teaching that program. And like all of it, you know, we do not have headline professors that we stick on the website for the sake of prestige, and then you see them once in your 3 years. That doesn't happen. If their name is on the program, they are the lead teacher on that program. It's just how it works here. It is different. It's a different ethos. It's a different academic culture, and like their primary job is teaching. And always have been.
You also get, and I'm going to guess, Queens, you have something similar. We have what's called a studies advisor, and that is a professor of the course, and you can meet with them once a month, once a week. If they feel you need additional support, or you feel you need additional support, you meet with them, you discuss your studies, you know, whether it's just you want to talk about how you're feeling, personal feelings, or you want to actually just discuss some course and see if there's something extra that they could offer. They're there to support you, and you do meet with that professor of that particular course. I personally didn't utilize it enough until my final year when I was doing my major projects, and then I realized I need a bit of extra support here. And everyone has an open door policy. They want you to come in and chat with them. So again, you hear the word personal tutor, studies advisor, it is a professor of the course. It's not, again, a master's or research student.
I think it was my favorite part of studying was we would go into these lectures, and again, our classes weren't that big, but I did a relatively contentious subject area. I'd studied criminology, so a lot of it was about criminal justice and policing and all these very emotive issues. And after every lecture, I would just go and hammer on the professor's door and like have to go in and just argue with them about it, because I was never satisfied, but they were there all the time. And just you build up actual relationships with these people. You know, they're not just there and they disappear out the door with the briefcase and you don't see them again. Like they are there because they want you to learn and they want you to engage. And what the feedback we get from our academics is that they really enjoy having US students in the classroom, because they will actually stick their hand up and talk to them about it, and they will engage in the class and they will come and get stuck into the subject matter, which is what we want, and is such a huge part of the academic culture here, is that it's independently driven. So students will get out of the education what they're willing to put in. So if you're willing to go and engage, it's a fantastic environment to be in.
Amazing. I love it. I want to come. All right. So we are coming up on an hour. So I think we will wrap up. Any last questions? No? All right. Thank you all so much. This was really, really great to have this little spotlight on Northern Ireland, because I think a lot of students looking at UK tend to focus more on England or Scotland because they're just a bit better known. And so this was really, really great to learn more about these two universities and this little corner of the island. And I hope that students will feel free to reach out to Peter and Jonny with questions. You can contact them if you want me to put you in touch with them. I can do that. But thank you all for being here. And thank you, Peter and Jonny, as well, for being with us and sharing all this great information.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Right.
Yeah, any questions, do reach out to us both. We're more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. And students, we have just a few more workshops this week. We have Scotland this afternoon at 2:30. And then tomorrow we have Ireland and study in Asia. And then Wales on Thursday. Peter's very competitive. I've noticed that this month. He's very competitive.
It's all friendly. Promise.
I know. I love that. All right. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you again so much. See you next time.
Thank
guys.
you. Thank you.